Welcome, everyone, to tonight's Wednesday Night Live show. I'm your host, John Truncali. My co-host for tonight is Tim, Allison, maybe Phillip. And joining us tonight, our good friend, Charles Gardner. And on tonight's show, Allison got a chance to sit down with Bill Wirtz. Is that how you say it? Wirtz?
Yeah.
Wirtz. Okay. Yeah. Senior Policy Analyst at Consumer Choice Center, where she had a conversation about a new upcoming pod series, Fun Police, which is being produced by Consumer Choice Centers. Links to the series are in the YouTube chat header, and it's on Facebook and everything else. So if you need to find it, I will be posting it throughout the show as well, where you can find it. Also, Allison is back with her segment, Tell Me Something Good, which the song hasn't been stuck in my head, but I'm singing a different song, which I'm not going to sing the words to because it'll throw me off. Tonight's article is about Kansas children noticing a homeless problem in their city, and they're designing homes to help. So it should be a fun little article. And as always, news and advocacy with our paper tapping. Let me make sure I got the right thing here. Our paper tapping rocker, Timmy. Did it play?
Yeah, and I had to resort to my little tablet of paper. So how's my week? Average at best. I it's ever since summer ended and the onslaught of marauding 5-year-olds with squirt guns have now had to retreat into their domiciles for the winter. It has been very uneventful around here as of late. So I don't know. What do you guys want to know? I had two meetings today.
Do you think they know you're packing now, though, Tim? Were they aware that you're packing?
We don't want to reveal any of my war planning for next summer, so I don't want that broadcast out on the internet because I don't want any unsuspecting 5-year-olds to know that they got a couple squirts coming right back at them.
See, just notice all of Tim's booby traps throughout the pool area.
No, I don't want any. Unfortunately, I probably should have put a nondescript curtain behind myself so that I can broadcast from an unknown location, and I would not be able to be traced in this neighborhood. But I'm sure everybody outside can see all the purple and blue and red lights out through the window. So I tip my hand.
Well, at least next year that you need to laminate your signs, right? You need to laminate your signs next year because
to that point, John. To that point, I did. I paid very close attention to this particular toddler's, target area, and that particular sign I did put behind plastic sleeves, so they could no longer run like a sad woman's makeup on a Friday night after she got dumped.
Allie, how's your week going?
I would just like to say, Tim, that I laminate things for work. I would be happy to set you up. Okay.
I will just send you the electronic files.
There you go. I'll laminate them up for you in the mail.
She'll dock them all up, make them all little cartoon characters in there. You got to get something on there so the kids want to read it, right? I mean, if it's just words up there, they don't give a shit.
I think I might take Allie up on that because I need to look a little bit more professional. This was sort of like my first year kind of like heading up that charge and kind of informing people by virtue of sign. And so it looked a little tacky with painter's tape and stuff everywhere. So I think I need to step my game up and look a little bit more pro. So
I got you. I laminate stuff all the time for my son's band teacher. It's like his entire door when you walk in is just laminated pictures that I've made for him. But yeah, so speaking of band, marching band is over. Really sad, but also yay, a little free time. But my son got the opportunity to go to Coastal Carolina and play with the with the band there. So that's where we were last week. And he had a great time, although it rained like crazy and he was drenched from head to toe. So got a towel and a blanket and a pillow, and he like cuddled up in the back seat and knocked out on the ride home because it was about 2 hours from the house.
Were you impressed with the campus, Allie?
It's a nice campus. I know he's still leaning towards USC, University of South Carolina. So we'll see what happens. But we've applied to a few. I say we because I basically applied for him. But we've applied to a few places. Got to keep your options open. But he does have his music audition in February for USC. So then we'll find out if he's accepted or not.
All right. Hey, Phillip, how's your week going, buddy?
My week has been great until Safelite replaced my windshield and managed to take off my rearview mirror in the process. So they are actually doing a tremendous job of working with me and getting this part taken care of. And strangely enough, my car has a little electronic emergency brake tab. They managed to, the rearview mirror kind of fell and put a little crack in that part of the gear shift area. So I'm not exactly sure how specialized this part is. So it could take a while. So I said, look, I don't really want to go rent a car. My insurance can only do so much. And he's like, no problem. I'll talk him into getting you a loaner. So I have a replacement Volkswagen just like mine, only it's newer and not as nice. But I have to say, shout out to Safelite for not being, not dragging their feet on this. But other than that, it's been great. We're getting the new house together. Deirdre's moving a bunch of her stuff in here. I'm throwing most of it out. Things are good.
Throwing your shit out. I love it. That's how it works. You don't need that velvet poster.
I fall asleep and she will go into my refrigerator and deem which hot sauces have expired and which are not. I mean, I will come out. It's, organization is great, but organization in a way that, let's just say there's a method to my disarray. When she organizes my organized disarray, I can't find anything. Hence my tardiness. So anyway, I hope everyone is good. Cheers.
Yeah. I had my buddy had the same situation with his rear mirror and his windshield. But what he didn't realize is it's a newer car and that sensor is in there for the brake assist.
Yes, it is.
And mucho dollars, man, if you break that.
I honestly would not have believed it if you had told me. No way. And let's just say, yes, go ahead and pay for Safelite to replace your windshields, because if they should destroy your car in the process, they'll buy you a new one.
They'll buy you a new one, man.
Basically, yeah.
And Mr. Charles, let me give you the proper introduction, Charles. Woo! How's your week, Charles?
Excellent. It's great to see you all again. Phillip, I'm loving your color scheme behind you. It was that mustard, very happy color, and Allie too, actually. So it's a good week.
Well, you don't like my curtains, Charles?
They're a little drab. Sorry.
They're a little doily.
I like light coming in.
So people are constantly wanting to talk to me, including journalists from the AP, and all of them want to talk to me pro bono. And eventually, I'm going to have to start telling people.
Except us.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are you hinting at? We have no money.
No, you guys are okay.
Are we grandfathered in?
Anyway, so lots of interactions and good ones, including following a lot of what's going on in what used to be called the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, and what new leadership and possibly big changes, including possibly a change even in the name and rebranding and all of that. But I'm spending actually a lot of my time trying to work out the logistics of taking my boys to Michigan to see family over the Christmas holiday. I have two boys. One is 23, the other's 20. They haven't seen their grandmother in more than 2 years, and it's mainly COVID related. And the latest I heard is that the older boy, Alexander, wants to bring his girlfriend.
Oh,
Very,
that's so sweet.
it's very sweet. And like, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah. See, grandma.
Old.
Meet the family. And I don't know what, she probably has no idea what she's about to get into.
Hey, Thanksgiving's a tough one, man, to bring a new person into the family. Thanksgiving's tough.
This one's Christmas, but yeah.
That's even, that's tough too. But Thanksgiving dinner and just, your whole family, everybody's different personalities, that crazy uncle that everybody has that's got to unbutton his pants after dinner and sit on the couch. Yeah.
Damn, yours waits till
Well, now
after
that's me, unfortunately.
That's become you, Phillip. It's like, oh.
The thing is, I've met this girl. She can hold her own. So
Good.
she'll be fine.
Good. We are going to jump into the segment where Mr. Tim up there says hello to everybody. And let me
I shall. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, there it is. You can hear it. The soft, sweet sounds of smooth jazz at 7:12 p.m. in an evening. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show. I'll try to speak a little bit more slower and enunciate, I will pronunciate and I will enunciate. But let's say hi to everybody in the chat tonight. Mr. Tom Morowitz at the top of the list. Great to see you, Mr. Tom. Me and Tom are friends on Facebook now. So, there's big things going on in the world of social media. Mallory Gates, wonderful to see you, dear. How are you? Great to see you back. Hold on, I got to scroll just a tiny bit. Mr. Curtis Clement. Curtis lost a bet tonight. Everyone say a little prayer for Curtis. He lost $5 virtual dollars to someone he was betting that John wasn't going to hit the button until 1 minute after 7. But John, you were right on the money tonight. You hit it right at 7. So had you booked that in Vegas, you might have had some money to keep the rest of the night going. But let's keep rolling.
I would have been able to eat at the buffet, Tim.
You would. There's probably like $80 a plate in those places now. I don't know with inflation anymore. Steve Todnam, great to see you, Mr. Steve Todnam. Welcome back to the show. Pam Spraggins in the house. Great to see you, Pam. I'm scrolling. Who else we got? Well, we have Buttery Biscuit. I don't think he stayed around very long. He wanted to know what happened to the channel. He missed all his old. We miss him too, Buttery. Trust us, we're all longtime Zamplebox fans, or we were patrons of the business, and some of us still are. But we're here, so we're the next best thing. So you can stay right here if you're still in the chat. Who else we got in here? I saw everybody like yelling. Guess who's with us, everybody? We have a very honored guest with us in the chat. Mr. Jeffrey Zamora is in the chat. Good to see you, Mr. Jeffrey Zamora. Wonderful to see you, sir. Always
my hero.
Yes, hero for many people.
Jeff,
there,
how are you?
Phillip. And we have the wild and crazy pirate James R. James R. in the house. Good to see you, brother. Welcome back to the show. Great to always see you. Who else we got in here? We got Mr. Addy Tooney. Mr. Addy Tooney. I like it because it ends with E, with the Y-E sound. So it rolls together. Addy Tooney. What are you tuning into, Addy? What are you tuning into? Bless you, Charles. Bless you.
Hallelujah.
So from Berlin, great to see it though. Welcome back to the show. Sometimes he sneaks in kind of late. I don't get to say hello to him, so I'm glad you're on time, Mr. Tho. Welcome to see you. Or welcome to see you. What language am I speaking? I'm making up gibberish.
You sound
great to see you, sir. Welcome back to the show. Who else we got? Hold on, I'm going. I'm waiting for Michael Redfern. Where's Michael Redfern tonight? You're late, buddy. Anyway, that's it. Welcome to the show.
Sorry, Tim. To set up that thing, you think it would just go into the bottom bar and not start, but it starts like right away as soon as you upload it into the show. So
Gosh darn that technology.
tell you, StreamYard.
I think we should all take a second and tell John how good he is at what he does here. Thank you, Captain, for doing an amazing job every
Fantastic.
Wednesday
I
and Friday.
had a long night, man. This is the season of calling in sick and then sending people home for not being able to keep their eyes open at work. So yeah, I had to work 2 extra hours last night, and I was doing this at 8:00 in the morning. I'm just like, oh my God, I could do this. I got Pop-Tarts, granola bar, and my 6 cups of coffee mug, and then a regular mug. And I'm just, drinking away. And I know right at about 5 in the morning, I need to eat the Pop-Tart because that's going to give me the sugar that I need to stay awake.
I've been doing these Quest bars recently, and they're actually pretty
good.
They're pretty good. The sugar's not there, but the protein definitely is.
Yeah.
Don't eat them before you go to bed. Definitely when you get up is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm trying to get readjusted to working nights, and then realizing I'm that guy where like I get home even before I worked night shifts for almost 20 years. And I was that guy that just went straight to bed. I didn't mess around. Like some people want to come home, walk around, do some stuff and get, a couple hours. No, I go straight to bed. So just kind of getting my body back into that rhythm and trying, like you just said, that's the most important thing for me is not eating. It's like, make sure I don't eat before I go to bed, at least at least they say like 3 hours. Don't eat anything for at least 3 hours before going to bed.
Of course, 3 hours before you go to bed is when you become like really snacky hungry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
And then I posted that article in our chat because someone sent it to me, and it's like all these little tricks on how to get yourself to fall asleep. There's a military one in there, how the military does it. And I call bullshit on the military one. There's just no way that anyone could fall asleep doing that technique within 10 minutes. I call bullshit.
do me a favor. I'm a fellow insomniac here. I haven't slept in 40 years.
I'll send it to you.
Please.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yeah, it's some sort of their military trick where you have to relax your face.
Let your forehead go smooth.
Yeah, and your cheeks, and then just you kind of bring it all the way down to your toes. So your face, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, you just kind of feel this sensation going through your whole body. And by the time you get to your feet, you're supposed to be out.
I think we tried to do that in my senior year of college in some kind of, psych class.
Yeah.
I laughed heartily all the way through it. It did not work.
Yeah. Allie, I want you to go ahead and introduce your segment.
All right. Well, I had the pleasure of interviewing Bill Wirtz. Yeah. And he is doing a podcast with Consumer Choice Center. A couple other familiar faces. We've had Yael on the show. And I know Elizabeth helped a little bit with it. And it is called The Fun Police. And the first episode of it dropped today. I don't know if you guys had a chance to listen to it. I did. It was really, really interesting. I listened to most of it on the way home because I was trying to listen to it at work, but they just keep trying to make me do work at work. Like, what is up with that? So I got to listen to it on the way home and when I got home. And it's an excellent podcast. Episode 3 is going to be about vaping. So I definitely recommend it. And after the interview with him, we have 3 clips from the podcast that 2 of them have not been heard yet that we get to share with you guys.
Perfect. And I'll go ahead and start it, Allie. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Bill. How are you? So today we have Bill Wirtz. Is that correct way to pronounce?
That's correct.
Okay. With Consumer Choice Center joining us. We're going to promote his new podcast that's coming out. I know it's all about prohibition and, the repercussions of prohibition. And so I think you told me that the 3rd episode of the podcast is going to be all about vaping, which obviously we're very excited to watch. So we just wanted to ask some quick questions about you. get some information about the podcast so we can promote it. And obviously you were so gracious enough to send me 3 clips of the podcast that we're allowed to kind of tease the audience with. So they'll be really excited and ready to watch it when it comes out. So first of all, Bill, so nice to have you here. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the series. So my name is Bill Wirtz. I even start saying words at this point for my last name because it's so international. I'm originally from Luxembourg. It's a very small country in Europe. I've lived in different countries. I speak different languages. It's a very European thing. And we at the Consumer Choice Center have been starting this campaign. So the podcast series is part of a larger campaign that includes a mini documentary, an event in Warsaw, Poland, an entire academic-style paper. It's about 40 pages on the history and the expression of prohibitionism today. And I'd always been pitching a podcast series. I'm a big podcast guy. I like ongoing ones, but I also like sort of the limited series type thing where I know I can actually listen to everything, right? And exactly, right. And so I wanted to do something like this in the storytelling mode, and I wanted to look at everyone knows about the temperance movement. The people who wanted to ban alcohol and successfully did in the United States and other countries. And it seems that we have something very similar today when it comes to smoking, vaping, drinking, gambling. There's an overlap between a lot of these movements. So essentially what I wanted to do is take a look at how they achieve that, what arguments they make, and who are the people who push back and make different cases for allowing these products to be on the market.
Right. Yeah. And we obviously, I use that argument a lot, vapors. We always kind of compare like the downfall to alcohol prohibition. And I think I always like to say, like, what if Al Capone had TikTok? How much damage could he have done? If he had access to modern day technology. And I do believe that that's true. I believe that anytime you make a prohibition out of a particular product, it's almost like you make it more popular at the same time. More people want access to it. It's almost like you tell me I can't have it, so now I want it. And so I think that that's the reasoning behind disposables becoming so popular. Not only are they cheap to make and easy to, change the branding and reproduce them, but, for some reason now the FDA has this, attitude against these disposables. And of course, what do you see is an explosion in the market of these disposables. And so, I think it's a little ridiculous. I think it's, it's almost like it's like, don't touch the stove, it's hot. Well, I'm going to go touch the stove because you're not explaining to me why I shouldn't. You're just saying it's hot and you shouldn't do it, but I'm still curious of why can't I go over there and touch that stove? What's really going to happen to me? So, and I think too, the amount of lies that are being spread about vaping, I think that the youth is a lot smarter than public health gives them credit for. And I think that they're able to kind of find out things for themselves with this access to the internet. And I think they're able to realize that that's not so true. And it piques the curiosity more. Kids want to do adult things, and adults definitely should not be punished because kids want to try and do illegal things, so it's been really frustrating for us because that's really been the only reasoning given is it's not appropriate for public health. Your products aren't appropriate because kids like flavors. And that's really not a good enough explanation to take these life-saving products away from adults. So I like flavors too. We all everyone
like
does.
I get my coffee friends always give me shit for ordering things that they don't consider coffee. I like the salted caramel frappuccino, whatever thing. I order the most ridiculous stuff, and I don't think that makes me a child. And I think this whole notion of the flavors. Ethan Edelman, who's is very well known in drug policy reform. We have this clip that is going to be played as well from the podcast where he says we had the exact same arguments when we tried to do a reasonable drug policy. Why can't we have needle exchange programs? We got to protect the kids. Why can't we legalize cannabis? We got to protect the kids. And so I think I'm pretty sure those arguments were very similar. during the temperance movement when alcohol prohibition was on the table. So ultimately, this cannot be it. That can't be the extent of every restriction we have. Right. And also, I think it has to be very clear. If there is something we want to be strict on, it is youth access to nicotine products. Yeah. And I think it should be very clear that there is a collective parental and legal responsibility that if you're a shop owner and somebody comes in who's clearly underage, and you ask for ID, they don't want to provide it, or you're just careless, then there should be repercussions. Maybe it's a fine, maybe it's losing your license of selling those products in the future. I think that's where we need to be strict. I think that's a sensible thing, as we already do with cigarettes.
Mm-hmm. I think all vape shop owners agree with that. I think we all agree with that. Is that for my company that we work for, we have set up our sales POS system, so you cannot even make a sale unless you're scanning a valid ID. The system will actually not allow you, because we love our front end staff and we trust them, but everybody makes bad decisions, and maybe the judgment could have been off, and I don't think it would ever be in a malicious way, but we don't want to be contributing to that problem. And I feel like there's many places that are like that. That should be celebrated. Those are the places that the FDA should be saying approvals all around, because, you guys are doing it the right way and you are protecting the youth. But I feel like that argument kind of loses its bearing when they're not even taking that into consideration. All of that was included into our PMTA, screenshots of what happens if you scan an underage ID, what happens if you scan an expired ID, what happens if you scan a valid ID. And so, none of that, I don't think it was even looked at or taken into consideration, because that is your whole argument right there, is that we are not selling to youth. We don't have any issues. We haven't had any infractions or warning letters or anything. So we're taking the extra steps. That should be kind of like a guideline for other places that are not getting approvals, maybe that don't have such strict, age verification enforcement. And that should be the difference of what gets approved and what doesn't. But it really doesn't seem to matter what we do to protect the youth. And that's where the FDA's argument falls flat.
Yeah, I think even if the number of underage youth vaping was zero, it's not like the people who are currently making those arguments would stop. I just don't see that happen. Yeah. I think it's a convenient argument to make. It makes for the headlines. For the series, I scroll through all specifically the American media stories about youth vaping, and it goes really from there was one, I think it's in the Today Show did this thing where they asked teachers whether they can spot the hidden vapes. And it's there were the vapes hidden inside pens and watches and so on. It's very, it's very sensationalist, sort of the approach to that. The numbers don't really matter. And, the other side of the story, which is the people who quit, smoking, which is that one we know is really bad. We really want to get. If you think about it, I think this is amazing. If you think about it, the government has really tried to get people off smoking for decades. Since it's been fairly recognized that smoking causes emphysema and lung cancer and a bunch of other problems, the government has done so much, raising the prices disproportionately compared
Taxes,
to a lot of other products.
All the warnings on them, the grotesque pictures and images that you have to look at now as reality of what could happen to you if you smoke.
All these things. There's also more of a social stigma towards smoking. There's so many businesses that don't even allow you to smoke up in front of the business. There's all these rules, and yet there's a certain amount of people that just does not quit smoking, even with nicotine replacement therapy. It doesn't work for everyone. And here's a product that gets an incredibly large amount of people off smoking, and now we're trying to do everything to take it away. In this series, we also talk about other products that, we talk about gambling, we talk about alcohol. Yeah. Where I think the argument is more sort of on the, individual responsibility, because drinking too much, sure, you can say you drink light beer, and I guess maybe that's the harm reduction equivalent. But ultimately, if I want to drink a bottle of wine, I drink a bottle of wine, right? That's sort of that's my right to do that as an adult. I get to do this. I think with vaping, it's even more amazing, because here's actually a harm reduction product that, so you can vape and drive, right?
Right.
It should be the easier one to make the case for. And yet I think compared to alcohol, it's actually like so much more controversial. I think that amazes me in sort of the work that we do, that this is the hard one to explain to people.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was too, like, I lived in New York before I moved to South Carolina. I mean, in New York City, there were certain spots that you had to stand on the street if you were smoking. You couldn't even just stand on the street and smoke a cigarette. There was specific places you could get ticketed for standing, at a certain spot and having a cigarette. And so there was so much stigma around it. And I finally feel like when I finally moved here and finally broke free of my, my cigarette addiction and moved into vaping, it was much more accepted. And now all of a sudden that stigma is back. And I almost feel like sometimes it's worse because I genuinely have people that will yell things at me if they see me vaping. And I'm like, or give me, like, we went out for wine, my best friend and I, on Friday after work, and sat outside at an outdoor table, and we're vaping and not blowing in anybody's face or anything like that. Just, being just casually sitting there vaping, having a drink. And the woman was like across this table, across the way, was whispering to her husband, and they were both kind of giving us dirty looks. And I'm like, I almost feel like sometimes it's worse because of the misinformation and just blatant lies coming out of public health and those truth initiative and things, truth commercials and things like that are meant for youth only to see, but the adults are seeing it and then stigmatizing people that are using vaping. And that's not helping, because all of the people that they know that could potentially be helped by maybe switching if they are smoking, that's really hurting their chances, because now they truly believe that this is probably just as bad, or if not worse, than smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, I mean, we experienced this. I mean, just in personal conversations that I have with people ask me, it was like, well, isn't this worse than smoking cigarettes? I think that's one part. And then also, to a certain extent, there's doctors, GPs that just also misinformed on this. And they I've read stories of people who say, like, my GP advised me to keep smoking because it's better than vaping, right? I mean, it's hideous if you think about it. I currently live in Amsterdam, where flavored liquids have now been outlawed. Until the end of the year, they can still be sold, and then from the 1st of January, unfortunately, they won't be available anymore. I know that the colleagues at World Vapors Alliance, they went to The Hague, which is where the Parliament is, and they gave out a flavorless ice cream to the parliamentarians who voted in favor of this law. I said, well, I mean, you're an adult, you clearly don't like flavors, right? I mean, it seems that slowly, I mean, there's jurisdictions in Europe that treat this in a more mature way, but unfortunately, it's just politicians are often driven towards doing something, and doing something means legislating something away. And if there's too much bad news, if there's too much bad press, they feel compelled to do something. I can understand this on the level of, well, I mean, sometimes you want to get reelected, or sometimes you don't. Somebody came to you, a parent came to you, and said, I'm really worried about my child vaping, and so on, and then you want to do something. We've slowly moved away from, politicians actually reading through the reports of their own agencies and understanding the long-term implications of their actions. It's unfortunate, but there are also countries that get it right, and I mean the UK is a good example. We'll see what happens to this generation ban, and generation ban is specifically for tobacco products, but they also include some rules on vaping now. We'll see where that goes. But yeah, I mean, Europe is one of those where you also see best practices, because one country might allow it, the other one might ban it, and then you can also compare between those. I just have yet to see a country that came out of restrictive rules. It seems that every restrictive rule that is made is usually here to stay, and that's why I think it's so important to be active on it, because once the law is in place, repealing it is much harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the World Vapors Alliance. I'm actually a fellow with them, and I love the work they do. I'm so envious of like all the stuff they do. I'd love to do stuff like that here in the US, get some protests going and some big displays and things like that. I think what they're doing is fantastic. But at the same time, it shows you like it's hard everywhere. And unfortunately, bad policy seems to spread like wildfire, from country to country. And I can't help but feel a little responsible being a United States citizen for some of the bad policy and bad stories that have kind of been. I almost feel like the UK has to work double time to correct and help extinguish the lies that are coming out of the US. And it's really unfortunate because, my attitude is like, if it keeps going the way it's going, I might just pack my bags and move to the UK. But then I'm like, maybe things are going to get a little sticky over there too. And you really hate to see that because of all the progress that's been done and all the people that they've been able to help. It's hard to kind of watch that happen because they're getting it right. And it would be really sad to see them start getting it wrong for sure. But I want to ask you about, you're a political analyst at Consumer Choice. How long have you been with them?
I've been with Consumer Choice Center for 6 years now.
Okay, great. Congratulations on that. Great. I love all of your, coworkers. We've had a few on the show and colleagues, I should say, and they're great people and always doing great things for us. And we really appreciate that because we don't have a lot of support in a big way, a lot of big voices to speak for us, but we do have a lot of big voices against us. So any work that is, anti-prohibition and sensible regulation, we really do appreciate it because, I think a lot of people have this misconception of the industry not wanting to be regulated, and that couldn't be further from the truth. We want regulation. We want safe products. We just want fair regulation, which is not something that we've been getting. So what made you decide that you wanted to do this series?
I mean, first of all, I wanted to do a series and I wanted to have the time to do this. I mean, a lot of people underestimate that. I mean, if you do a weekly podcast where you have conversations with guests on, that's a headache of its own, right? Because you have to schedule the guests, you have to put it all together, see that the time works out. With this series, I really also wanted to have a storytelling mode. And I wanted something that also was very accessible to people who are not necessarily in on this topic, right? They hear a story being told where we also investigate, we look at the groups behind it. And it's a different experience than sort of the weekly podcast that we put out there. That's something that was very important to me. And then, of course, the topics are very important to me because it's like the amount of times I've been asked by people, why don't we just ban XYZ? I said, well, just because it's banned doesn't mean it goes away. It actually has a tendency of coming back at you worse when it is banned. As I mean, the Ivali cases, I'm pretty sure you've talked about this over and over. I mean, the Ivali cases, here's a good example of prohibition in action because, THC containing liquids with vitamin E, acetone, that's where the problem actually came from. And now what you're doing is, like a lot of people are doing, is like now stigmatizing the legal industry for what bootleggers got wrong. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this series, and also to have a place where we can compile a lot of that information into one. There's so many documentaries and news reports stigmatizing vaping and a lot of the other things that we talk about in the series based on one exception, on one news story, and then they make a whole documentary about it. And here I wanted to get everything in there. I wanted to talk about flavors. I wanted to talk about the facts on nicotine. I wanted to talk about the people that actually helped and had traumatic stories and where family members died because of smoking cigarettes, and they themselves were smoking cigarettes and they switched because of vaping. I wanted to get all of that out there. By the way, on episode 3 of the series, which will be dropping in about 3 weeks from now, because we're dropping the week by week. I can tease this also. For those of the listeners who don't know why the UK is actually so different on vaping and has different legislation, we will unveil that in that episode. It's actually a bit of a coincidence, and it was not designed. If you think there was some type of royal commission that looked at all the facts of vaping and then decided to treat it differently, that's not exactly how it happened, and we talk about that on our series as well. So I really wanted a place for us.
That's
to
exciting.
all of them.
That is really exciting. We'd love to see that stuff. And also, too, I think we're always searching for something that could potentially help us in our fight, and things that we can share and excerpts from podcasts, that explain things and break things down of what's actually going on over there would be super helpful, I think, to help us, deal with our politicians here. We do have a few sensible ones. There's a handful. I mean that very literally, a handful. But the rest of them, you know, we keep fighting and we keep trying to make change. But it's crazy because most people don't even believe me when I say to them, you know, in the UK, this is widely accepted. Not only that, there's some of them have vape shops, not vape shops, but quit, you know, help centers and some hospitals in the UK. And people look at me like I'm insane. And then you pull up the actual, you know, proof and they're like, oh, wow, I can't believe that. And I guess as a US citizen, we have to kind of assume, one, there's no MSA, and two, there is free healthcare in the UK. So it would make sense that they would want people in the UK to be healthier because that in turn saves them money. And it's unfortunate that in the US, it almost feels like they make more money keeping us sick. And that's almost something that that's what they want to do, because it can't make sense any other way of why they don't want something this successful at helping people quit smoking to be as widely available as possible. So you kind of get your tinfoil hat out and you're like, okay, why are they doing this to us? And why do they actually, as AVM, you know, has done FOIA requests and found that the information and the science is right there in the FDA. If they're aware of all of this, what is you know, benefiting them from keeping us on cigarettes? Why are they PMTA approving a low nicotine cigarette but not a vaping product? It just makes no sense. So it's nice to see some common sense, but also makes us really, really jealous.
I mean, what I think an interesting phenomenon that I now saw in the UK is they have this conversation about the generation ban. Essentially, anyone born after the 1st of January 2009 won't be allowed to buy any tobacco products.
Yes, that will stop them. We know that.
Exactly right. We talked to some researchers of members of parliament last week in London, and what they said is that, well, we solved this problem of tobacco use because of vaping, so now we can make tobacco illegal. I'm like, I'm very interested by the idea that, you know, you rightfully brag about vaping being a super effective tool of smoking cessation.
Yeah.
But I'm just not sure this is going to be the contributing factor to getting smoking to zero. It feels to me that now you're going to enable anyone in the illicit tobacco trade to now sell cigarettes for a lot cheaper than, right, you know, the regular corner shops had to sell them for.
Right.
And I mean, there's countries that had you know, precedents with that. I mean, in Bhutan, all tobacco products were illegal, and eventually the government had to give up prohibition because cigarettes were much cheaper than they previously were on the legal market, and people ended up smoking more cigarettes than they previously were before prohibition. So I think also in sort of the vaping community, when I hear this sometimes, like, well, vaping is now the alternative use product, we can make tobacco illegal. I think all sides have to sort of recognize that prohibition really doesn't help anyone.
Does not work.
We're on a good track here,
yeah,
but let's not get too excited and think that the heavy hand of government is gonna solve this. And something we also talk about the series in the series is that prohibition has a lot of consequences that should make a lot of people very concerned. I mean, Eric Gardner in New York. I mean, that story. I mean, he was selling illicit. I mean, he was accused of selling illicit cigarettes, and the idea that you can be taken down by 4 or 5 police officers because you were selling cigarettes on the street. I mean, it's just beyond me. And just picture. I mean, the war on drugs is one. I mean, now we're gonna try and add more products to the list of things that police can stop you for and search your car and search your.
I wanted to pause this real quick because I would love to know his thoughts on the King's speech here last week on the generation ban. I don't know if we can get him to come back on and talk a little bit about that, but I mean, I don't know how much. I'm not going to pretend like I don't know how much power the King actually has when it comes to this, but I feel like, do you guys feel like he still has the general public's respect when it comes to this topic? Like, if he brings this up like he did in his speech, are people in England going to listen about electronic cigarettes?
I mean, do they listen here? No.
Well, no, yeah, but his speech is pretty much wanting to ban electronic cigarettes as well. I don't know if you guys got a chance to listen to that speech.
That's the generational ban, though, that goes with age, right? Like, so by a certain...
Right. Yeah. and that was, I think it was a week ago. He came up and he spoke of that. So I'm just kind of wondering what you guys thought. I mean, does he still have enough pull to change people's perspective on vaping in England by having this speech and saying we need to also get rid of e-cigarettes as well? What do you guys think?
I think most of the people I know from the UK really don't care for him, so I'm not sure if that's if that's any indication. But
I mean, I don't know much about UK, the Parliament versus the royal family. I mean, to my knowledge, I thought mostly the royal family was more or less representation, just kind of figurehead. I don't know that they really heavily impacted policy necessarily. They were more about what goes on in Parliament. So with that said, I mean, we have to think about what they're trying to institute now and what it means 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. So if you, that's not to say that, because all of us here continue to vape years after we've quit smoking, but that's our adult choice to continue to do so, whether or not we feel we need it or not. We just enjoy it. I mean, I don't think anybody here is vaping some astronomical amount of nicotine that just would, blare, oh, addiction. I mean, no different than having a drink after work or an occasional cigar or something that you use in your personal life. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I don't think many people will listen. I think it's wrong to think that if you phase cigarettes out over time, naturally that would mean that you would phase vaping out at the equal amount of time or have some kind of an overlap. I don't think they both go away at the exact same time. I think it's good if you want to phase out smoking. Sure. I mean, if you look at it in the greater context of what they're trying to do, but I don't think vaping should be removed. I think people as adults, I think we reserve the right to make some choices. No one's proven that vaping is inherently detrimental to the population, that it's going to cause hundreds of thousands of deaths annually either.
Yeah.
Right. If there's one
It's
thing,
worth,
the first episode. Sorry, go ahead, Charles, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Philip.
No, I'm here all the time. You're a guest.
The king doesn't write that speech, right? So the speech is written by the Prime Minister's staff, and so the real question here is how bonkers that gradual ratcheting up of the legal age, and whether it's feasible to sell cigarettes. I thought that the policy does not apply to nicotine vapes, but I could be wrong. And it's basically, I'm just going to say it's bonkers because that's going to happen anyway. And if the UK follows the same trend that the US followed, then UK teen smoking is going to be approaching zero very soon, and UK adult smoking is going to be approaching zero by whatever 2040 or something. So it's going to happen naturally. Why impose a prohibition, which is really, this is Bill's thing. Prohibitions, they just don't work, and they involve a whole lot of enforcement and. It's just utterly unfeasible and silly, but it makes politicians feel like they're doing something.
Yeah.
I think you make a really good point. The only way we can really screw up the downward trend of smoking to zero, at least in this country alone, is by prohibiting it. And I do believe that the first episode of Fun Police is truly fantastic, and I believe that they do a very deep and thoughtful look at prohibition, its origins, and over the years how it's taken legal things adults do responsibly. You outlaw it, the next thing you know, you have chaos. You have the need for enforcement. You have criminals. You have new, brand new markets that are not only predatory but dangerous. And to actually, my personal view is to ban anything at this point, incrementally or otherwise, is a terrible idea. the substitute of safer nicotine products is, like you said, it's going to happen organically. So anyhow, let's please continue. This is a really great interview. Well done.
All right, here we go.
It just
Just
seems
a quick shout out
awful to even visualize like that we want to increase.
Go ahead, Charles. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to give a shout out to Ken Burns' documentary on alcohol prohibition. It is a must watch. It's obviously it's Ken Burns, so it's extremely well done. I did not know how gendered the move toward alcohol prohibition was, and what a weird deal it was to give women the right to vote, and then in return for alcohol prohibition.
Yeah.
And that's just bizarre. Like, we don't have any counterpart to that today. But it was a gendered issue, because in those days, the only people really drinking, with a few exceptions, were men. And so women did not go into saloons. It was just, no, you don't. Well, unless you're working for the
Don't
religious
say
profession.
it. Don't say it.
And so it was men. Yeah, I used to be a diplomat. I can say these things carefully. And
carefully.
So it was men, and it was men drinking, and the whole narrative was about how men were coming home drunk and beating their wives and their children, and losing their jobs, and their families were being destroyed. And just think of the children. So that element was there, but it was also this gendered issue that I did not realize. And so that's fascinating. And then, of course, we got rid of alcohol prohibition in 1933 and ratcheted and pivoted instantly toward reefer madness.
Reefer.
Which by the way, that was not gendered. That was racist.
Yeah.
That was totally racist.
Absolutely
racist. Right? Because, you know,
let me start Allie's
men
interview here.
using. Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
The power of law enforcement to look into things that ultimately, that's sort of my own business. And if I smoke, it's not good for me, but it's my own business, and it's my problem to deal with.
Right. And that's the thing. I think even I saw a Reason article recently, I want to say it was Reason, where his mother had spoken out and said not to do a menthol ban because it only creates more issues. So
yeah, I saw that as well.
She sees that and recognizes that. I mean, clearly, and I think, you know, I had seen too, like the Google results for how to add menthol to a cigarette have gone up, you know, exponentially. Like, they're just through the roof of people searching, how can I, you know, mentholate my own cigarette? Like, you're just opening the door to bigger health issues and more problems, because not all of these not everybody on Google and YouTube is a doctor or a chemist or a scientist and really knows a safe way to mentholate your cigarette. I definitely don't recommend doing it yourself, but that's ultimately what's going to happen. And we all know that the unregulated market doesn't follow any rules or pay taxes either. So you're hurting not only yourselves, but you're also not going to be bringing in that tax money, because you're opening the door to these illegal, you know, issues, and you're going to have more crime, more fatalities. And it's really difficult to wrap my head around the fact that we still don't get it. We've been down this road so many times and we still don't understand that these mistakes always end up with the same results.
I mean, prohibition has really changed. The temperance movement was about, I mean, they used argument of religion to some extent, but also just sort of the idea of public morality. So, I mean, if you were a woman in the mid-19th century, the temperance people would say that if you're a woman and you drink tea, that's immoral. I mean, of course, there was no science behind this whatsoever, but you were not supposed to drink tea as a woman because it could cause hysteria. That was sort of the argument, and there was an argument that tea should be illegal, and sort of we've moved away from this argument of public morality, because now people are way too educated to take any of this at face value, and now it's public health. Mm-hmm. And public health goes from the perspective of, well, this is not good for you, and scientifically we know this is not good for you, so therefore, and there you have to lie. because people can look this up and say, well, the science is not telling me that this is that this is a bad thing for me to switch from smoking to vaping.
Right.
I'm always inclined to give people the benefit of the doubt and be, well, I want to believe that most activists who want to make vaping illegal have good intentions and are not coming at this issue from a bad place. There are some of those as well. For instance, I don't think Michael Bloomberg doesn't know. I think Michael Bloomberg very well knows, but he chooses to not care. And I mean, maybe to some extent he's also in a bad place to backtrack at this point, right? I mean, he's donated so much of his money. I mean, talk about cognitive dissonance and sunk cost fallacy, right? I mean, here's a man who spent so much money on trying to stigmatize against vaping. I mean, it's almost difficult for him to go back. I really hope he's going to scale it down eventually to zero quietly.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that one.
and we should let him get. By the way, if he does that, we should let him get away with it. By the way,
yeah, we should.
He might ramp it up. It's like here's the message to Michael Bloomberg: if you quietly want to let this go, fine by me. All good. Good.
We will not call you out on it. We will actually thank you for correcting your messaging. Might send you a gift basket. I think Michael Bloomberg, though, is the kind of person that just likes to ban things he doesn't like. I mean, I lived in New York. I remember the big gulp ban. And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I can just go buy 2 big sodas. I'm not a soda drinker, so it didn't affect me, but it made me upset because I'm like, why would you feel like you have the right to tell anybody what they can and cannot put into their own bodies as a grown adult? If you want to go drink basically a 2-liter full of soda in one sitting, that's your right. And what's stopping you from going in and buying a big bag of ice and a 2-liter and getting your own cup? I mean, you're not doing anything for anybody. It's like, this bothers me, so I don't like it. And he does have a history of doing that. If you look into the things that he's banned or tried to ban, it's just things that like he doesn't like. And that's not how the world should work. It shouldn't just be one older gentleman who has a ridiculous amount of money to say, I don't like this, so I'm going to fund these groups and we're going to get rid of it because I don't like it. Like that's not how we do things. When there's 480 million, 8 billion people are projected to die this year from tobacco related diseases. Like that should be more important than what Mr. Bloomberg doesn't like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the portion sizes conversation was also just ignoring that those are based on, what people want. I mean, when I'm a European, when I go to the US, I'm always a bit surprised by the portion sizes of food as well. I go to a diner and I get served way more food than I thought I was going to get. And then I realized, well, Americans have a certain expectation that they will take a certain part of that food with them, which is not something we do as much in Europe. And makes me understand as well that if I don't want that large portion because I'm just on a visit, then I'll find something that they'll cater to me in some way or another. And I think regulating this away. I mean, take the example of vegetarian options. 20-30 years ago, you would be hard pressed in many restaurants to find a vegetarian option or even a vegan option, especially. And sort of there was no legislation to make that happen. All that happened is that there were more people inclined to those dietary choices. They argued for it publicly, and now look. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find a place that won't give you a vegetarian and or vegan option. So I think there's also there's sort of a market demand for it, and I think that we should recognize that. But in any case, for the series, I really hope that people will subscribe to it and put on the notification bell so that they won't miss any episode. We really took a wide spectrum here on analyzing the topic. Talk to philosophers as well about the harm principle and what does John Stuart Mill say about the things that harm yourself, because the harm principle is about hurting someone, but what if I'm hurting myself? Should I be stopped by someone? Sort of what is the philosophical background on some of this legislation? We really wanted to go deep on these issues. We talk about FCTC, we talk about Michael Bloomberg. There's a lot of good content here for people to enjoy on a long drive or while working out. It's really
I'm really looking forward to watching it. Yeah, I think everybody else is too, for sure.
we put all the efforts of research and production into this. I've been on this for a while, and I'm really looking forward to people to hear it for the first time. Yeah.
So, well, following this little clip between you and I know that John has set up and formatted those small clips that you sent me, so the audience will be watching that. And we will definitely, I'd love to do this again with you, maybe some follow-up after we can get some feedback from the audience, and
Absolutely.
maybe ask some questions. But I really do appreciate you spending this time with me. I know it's getting dark over there, so I'm going to let you go. But I really do appreciate you spending this time with me. And we're really looking forward to this. And we thank you so much for this work and for speaking out on our behalf, because we really do need that right now.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Bill. You have a good night.
Real quick, I'll go ahead and play that speech thing real quick here. How do I do this, Timmy? Oh, I got it.
Look, I don't know anything about technology. I'm just an idiot. A useful one at that.
Acceptance is the first step, is it not? Or no, third step.
To create a smoke-free generation by restricting the sale of tobacco so that children currently aged 14 or younger can never be sold cigarettes, and restricting the sale and marketing of e-cigarettes to children.
Don't forget to order your mug.
I was enjoying such positive humor. Why did you do that?
That was the end of the video. That was it. But you know what? I'm not going to say. It's just when you look at them do their stuff when it comes to Parliament and stuff, it just looks so much more classier than what we're doing here in our country. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, when he was saying we need to ban cigarettes, I almost started to agree with him, but not at all, actually.
Yeah.
That's I think Charles made a good point earlier. I think it was Charles who said that he hasn't a clue what it is that he's reading. It's been written for him, but unfortunately, when the king speaks those words, people have a tendency to think, well, the king is right. In this particular case, the king has never been more wrong, in my ever so humble opinion.
Well,
I just don't know. I just don't know how much. Like, I'm not there. I don't know how much power he really gets the general public backing him up. I mean, is he considered just, just there, or is he just somebody that still, when he says something, people are going to listen?
There's actually evidence to suggest that people are going to do the opposite of what he says these days. So I'm actually thinking that's a good. Yeah, we have that on our side. But the fact that he would even touch on that is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. He's just saying what the prime minister's policy is.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's not him, actually. It's the prime minister.
This is where you guys can find the episode. I posted it a few times in the chat, guys. Don't go there now, though. Wait till the show's over. Then go over there and listen to it, or like he said, at the gym or in your car. But yeah, I posted links to the Spotify account there, and it's in the header as well. So if you need to find it after you're done watching the Wednesday Night Live show.
Of course.
Go ahead, Philip.
Oh no, I said, but of course.
But of course.
Well, I was just wondering if we shouldn't have read a little bit more into the context of the statement that he said, the very last little part where, he definitely put emphasis on the fact that he wants to phase out cigarettes at some point. But I don't know, call me. I spent a lot of time looking at HOA covenants, and you have to read language sometimes a certain way. And I don't know, the way he said about the electronic cigarettes would no longer be sold to children. Well, he specifically talked about marketing and sale to children. So I don't know that he emphatically was saying that he intends on eradicating electronic cigarettes in totality. It was just that they would continue to pursue so that they would no longer be able have an avenue to sell to children, or at least work hard to prevent children from getting their hands on it. That's how I heard it.
Yeah.
So let me put this a different way. This is the way I see it. In 2009, the U.S. Department of Health published its Healthy People 2020 goals. And in those goals, they wanted to get high school smoking down to 16% by the year 2020. Right? I mean, you know what it was? By 2020, it was about 4%, and now it's 1.9%. This is going to happen anyway. So it's in the UK, it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. Well, Ali, I want to thank you for that interview. It was fun for you to do that. I know it's really hard for us to get someone in the UK to to come join us. It's so much later, and so
I think he said it was going to be 1 a.m. for him. So I was like, oh, we'll definitely pre-record that for you.
Yeah. Tim and I had one of our earlier shows. We had a coil builder. He was a famous coil builder out in Germany. And remember that guy? And it was like 2 a.m. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think he was all jacked up on Mountain Dew or something, because that guy was
Red Bulls.
He had
like 6 Red Bulls.
Well, remember how he said that? Like, what?
A few Coca-Colas, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but I just remember. I don't remember anything that explicit, but I do remember that he said he loved to do like parkour in his apartment, and he just thought that the neighbors probably thought that there was some chaos going in. But that guy was complete. I believe his name was Daniel. I want to say his name was Daniel. I think he's still on Instagram. But that's hard. It's hard when we're here and they're there, and at least people can accommodate us. So
yeah. But we always got our fallback, Charles. We got Charles to come in and join us.
Thank you for being here, Charles Clovis. Charles, sorry.
It is really thoughts? Frustrating that the earth is round.
Yeah. I want to get your take on Ali's interview. What did you get from that interview?
I love Bill, and Ali, you did a great job interviewing him. I look forward to seeing this. Is it a podcast or a video?
It's a podcast. And the first interview came out today. And we have the link. So if you click the link, it'll take you, you can listen to it anywhere that you would listen to your podcast.
I look forward to listening to that. So it's audio only.
Yeah.
It's
like Ethan Nadelman was doing.
It's really impressive,
it's really
by any set, Charles. I think you'll really be. I wouldn't say this if I didn't think. I was surprised, and I had pretty high expectations, and
Bill has a great podcast voice.
He does, but he also interviewed the right people asking the right questions, and it was very, let's just say I'm a big fan of John Stuart Mill. I was before. I am even more so now.
Yeah.
It's very informative, and at the same time, it goes into the philosophical discussions about, what is it about, adult, you have the right to choose, you actually understand what it is that you're doing. And that means you have, let's just say, you should be allowed to do as an adult what it is that you want to do, given that you understand that what the harms, the risks are. And of course, we have the train crossing thing, where you see someone who's about to cross the train tracks, and for some reason you have ESP and there's a train that's coming, but the person who's going to cross the tracks doesn't know that. Should you, in that case, stop them?
Yeah.
Well, it's very deep, but it's so good. It's so
in healthcare ethics terms, a prohibition is a violation of autonomy. It's a violation of choice, and that is a harm. And autonomy is a fundamental moral principle in healthcare ethics. So these should only be imposed in, I would say, the most extreme cases, not on things that.
I find it funny that we have proof. We have 100 years of proof that it does not work, and everybody knows this. Everybody sees what happened. I mean, you learn that in I think 9th grade in history class. They talk about prohibition, so you know what happened. You've grown up. You've seen what it caused. Yet you get to an adult, and all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, that's going to work this time. Oh no, it's going to work this time. It's like it's the same nonsense. You know, you're just going to get products that are out there that are going to harm somebody, like we had with Evali. It's going to get blamed on vaping, of course. You know, and it's just it's never going to work. But it just blows me away that everybody just like it's good this time. It's going to work. It's like, come on.
The irony now that we're launching a war on nicotine when we're at the same time de-demonizing cannabis and cannabinoids and de-demonizing psilocybin, which is like super effective for people with PTSD and chronic depression. It's just really weird.
It's really strange too that the same representatives, you know, the U.S. representatives that are fighting to legalize marijuana are the same ones that are trying to.
Isn't it? It's so hard to keep.
I'm like, what?
Keep your
it's
head.
like a
it really
huge
is.
step in the right direction and two huge steps backwards at the same time.
Do you all find it's very difficult to bite your tongue and not just burst out hypocrisy? And at the same time, these are all steps in the right direction. We should not deny that. But the fact that they're simultaneously saying, you know, free the shrooms, which,
right?
Thank God, it's about time. And then we're going to, you know, ban the thing that is going to end the global the global health catastrophe that is cigarette smoking. And yes, I do believe that vaping and heated tobacco products and snus, these things in tandem can all organically bring smoking around the world if they are available and governments embrace them. They're not going to have to ban cigarettes because people will naturally gravitate toward the safer alternative, which happens to be, for a lot of people, just as enjoyable, if not more so. But yes, there are those people who are older and set in their ways, and I don't believe anyone should be deprived of that choice to smoke if they do want to keep smoking. And that's part of the whole plan.
Do you think the pilot messed every? Do you think the pilot messed everything up for the legalization of shrooms?
That's the problem. We focus on these stupid data points. Like in the first episode of Fun Police, they mentioned this UK. I believe it was in the UK papers how someone of prominence committed suicide because of his gambling addiction. And next thing you know, everyone's crying, ban gambling. Well, it's all unfortunate, but you don't take one exceptional. It'd be truly. This is just one example. This is not a base rate sort of phenomenon. So what we're stuck with is sensational headlines and sensational people saying we need to do something sensationally, which is that's what I think is our biggest problem right now is we need to do something. No, I think doing something in many cases is far more destructive than not.
Well, that's the same with fentanyl. As soon as De Niro's grandson dies, now all of a sudden fentanyl's in the headlines every single day.
Yeah. I would say that when Jordan, my brother, died from heroin / it was an accidental overdose, but no, I didn't. It was already illegal. But let's just say if he hadn't had the Xanax, it wouldn't have killed him. And let's just say I wasn't lobbying the government to ban benzodiazepines. So here's what I think. I think that it's just asinine to take your one case and apply it. Yes, there are things that adults do that I do not care for. Do I believe that it is my duty to endure these things? Absolutely. Because I expect them to endure my
quirks.
Idiosyncrasy. I want to be the fun police. No, I'm kidding.
No, don't be the fun police. I thought Charles put up a really great kind of blurb post on X, formerly Twitter, the other day, where it was a picture of an apartment complex of some kind, and it was obviously ablaze, and he was sort of pointing out, the sort of the, I don't want to call a bad situation sort of hypocrisy, but it was one of those scooters with a battery in it that was charged caught on fire and caught an apartment on fire. And I wanted to make sort of like a comical response in the thread, but I thought it merited the point that he was trying to make. I was going to say, I was going to say, well, something like this definitely puts danger on top of a dangerous situation. I was going to ask if they come in an electric blueberry color, because adults don't like colors. So
three people just died here in that fire in New York City. It was actually here in Brooklyn where I live. And these have been, it's in the news all the time that these electric scooters are prone to catch fire, especially if they have kind of dodgy batteries. Does this start to sound familiar?
yes,
Yeah.
There are approved batteries and
Amazon Basic batteries.
and there are people talking about prohibiting them or banning them, but it's not happening because everybody wants to get their Uber Eats and their food deliveries. So that ain't going to happen. But there's no question that lithium-ion batteries can be rarely dangerous.
But in general, aren't they? I heard that, for example, in San Francisco, the autonomous vehicles were causing problems because they were stopping in front of fire trucks and things like that. But what I heard, and I'm just putting this out there, I don't know if this is true. In general, they work very well. They were simply, there was a bit of a panic over a couple of isolated incidents. I don't know if that is the case. Let's just say in San Francisco,
the autonomous vehicles, that one of them ran into a dog, so there's a lot of headlines about that. The first time somebody hacks into one of those things and causes it to drive into a crowd, they're going to get prohibited.
Game over.
That is fucking dark.
God, that was in a movie I saw where somebody's car was taken over by somebody hacked into it, and I was like, oh,
I know.
Was that Liam Neeson? I'm getting.
What are you people watching? That is off.
Yeah, no, I've seen that movie. I know which movie you're talking about.
Charles, you're right about the dog. I swear excuse me.
Oh, you don't fuck with dogs.
You don't
kill a
fucking dog.
But how many people mistakenly run over dogs every day in this country? I would like to just know that. It's just
I don't want to know that. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, here in Modesto, you go to jail for that. If you run the dog over and just leave and not try to at least spend a somewhat of time looking for the actual owner, you could go to jail for that here.
This is the thing. So people don't have an understanding of risks.
Yeah.
So if you can point it, you can tell people that out of 100,000 drivers, 10 of them are going to hit a pedestrian and kill them, and out of 100,000 autonomous vehicles, one of them is going to hit a pedestrian and kill them, and they're going to want to ban the autonomous vehicle.
Pedestrians we're okay with. I'm talking about dogs here, Charles.
Dogs.
For the record, I was this close to going to vet school. Yeah, I can't have them running over dogs. We could do with fewer people. Dogs, we need more of. But all that said, what we're seeing are these isolated incidents, and everyone is just extraordinarily fascinated with everything that is quite exceptional and very rare. And well, that's when you see politicians, will you commit to ending Finsta? It's just one of those absurd things. And in this case, we're talking about phasing out cigarettes. I think that is just, you're really just ruining what is happening naturally, like you said. And I just want to close with that.
Well, I kind of want to get your guys' idea, because there are numbers that, when I looked it up, they were showing some numbers that, 40% in the 1970s, because of just raising cigarettes, caused, 40% of the population to quit smoking. Is that how high could it go, do you think, to where today that people would just say, okay, I need to really quit smoking? Because obviously there it's $20 a pack. In Australia, it's up to whatever a pack, and they're still selling.
50.
I just kind of wonder, where is that value at a point where everybody's just going to finally get pissed off?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about cigarettes explicitly, I mean, I think that you have milestones, right? So I think you're going to have people that are probably going to make a decision to find an alternative or potentially quit at a certain price point, because they're just going to look at their budget and they're going to go, this is just not realistic for me. I have other priorities in my life. One might be saving your own life by quitting smoking. But I do think that when you talk about smoking in other ways, you have to look at it in terms of the addiction itself, right? And I think that for some people, the addiction will far outweigh the cost, that they will find a way to pay for that. And I think that that is part of the case in Australia. And that just speaks to cigarettes in terms of how volatile they are as an addicting and deadly, albeit a deadly product. I think there are people are like, I can't go to the pub without a beer and my cigarette. I can't not wake up in the morning and not have that first puff. I can't not have that stress reliever at work when I need. Some people just don't have a mechanism built in to have that willpower to make a decision like, I'm going to quit. So they're going to find a way to dig deep in their pocket or shift their finances in a way to fit it into their lifestyle.
I wonder what things they're foregoing so that they might afford that $50 pack of cigarettes. That is a terrible thought.
There's some new data that came out from New Zealand recently, or new to me anyway. And just over the past decade, in the first half of the last decade, the New Zealand government increased cigarette sales taxes by 46%. It didn't make a dent in the smoking rate, because there is Philip, I know you're an armchair economist. Because of the inelasticity of demand with regard to cost, and then around 2015, 16. They increased the cigarette taxes another 41%, and they imposed plain packaging. Didn't make a dent. And then in 2017, I think it was, they started promoting nicotine vapes for adult smokers, and smoking rates plummeted.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why people can't, like, people are staring the evidence straight in the face and they still can't see it because they don't want to see it.
What was cost a factor with any one of you guys before you quit smoking? Was it like got to the point where you were like saying, okay, I need to find something else other than this?
I just drove to Jersey.
Yeah, I found
Jersey. I could still get the buy two, get one free like deal, you know?
Yeah. I went from Marlboro mediums. They're now called Marlboro Red Labels. I would go for the special blend, which is just a shitty cheaper version of the Marlboro Red Labels, and they were a couple bucks cheaper, but absolutely not. And it was actually something I remember being a little stressed out about, because it was something where I was trying to think about, okay, what don't I necessarily need so I can get that third pack of smokes before the end of the day, so I can just make sure. In retrospect, it's good God, I was out of my mind, but at the same time, I apologize for nothing, and that's why I'm here.
I was watching my buddy the other day, and I was in his car, and we went in to go get a pack of cigarettes, and he come back running, and he is just going through his fucking change thing in his car just to get enough to get I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like counting quarters. I'm like, no, you need to make a change in your life. But obviously, if you start digging in the ashtray looking for change, you got a problem, man.
This happens to be one of the few things you can't ask your friend or your parents or your brother to lend you a few bucks for, because guess what? This is where you really need to dig deep, and I do mean literally and figuratively. But
we all said if it goes up another $1, because I remember when I started it was 79 cents, and I said to myself, if it gets to $1, John, I'm quitting. And then we get to $1. Then I'm quitting if it gets to $1.50, and I kept smoking. I mean, I'm glad I quit when I did.
How much were cigarettes when you quit?
When I quit, $5.50 a pack.
Chump change.
I would say I had some culture shock moments where I was like, you got to be kidding me, cigarettes are this expensive. And one being a trip to New York a long time ago, and I asked for one pack, and she told me that she's like $10 and some change, and I'm like, I said one pack. And she goes, that is the cost for one pack. And that kind of shell shocked me. And I'm like, God, thank God I don't live here. And then Australia was certainly an eye opener. I was not prepared for that. Even with the currency conversion, when you do the relativity to it, I was not prepared for that. Now, Michelle Elliott made a good point. She said, go to the street vendors. And that's in effect what happened in Australia. When I saw what they were at the retail level, like in the regular stores, luckily I found some little around the corner, little hole in the wall kind of place where the guy was selling them significant. They were still really expensive by way of comparison, but I was like, whoa, these are a lot cheaper than my other alternatives. But here, I think cigarettes here, because my ex-wife was back and forth a lot. I think I want to say they were just under $5, approaching $5 a pack. So in my mind's eye, I thought that wasn't too horrifically bad in the greater scheme of things. I don't think that was enough to deter anyone. I have no idea what they cost now.
Georgia was slightly higher than Alabama. I think when I quit, the red labels, the premium cigarettes were somewhere around $6.50, maybe, and the special blends, which is another way of saying it's blended with really inferior tobacco, about $1.50 cheaper. But if I do remember going to Montreal around the time that I was going to discover vaping, Canadian 16, and I think at that time the Canadian dollar was somewhere around, I don't know, it's 78 cents. It was pretty strong. Anyway, so that would have made it somewhere around 12, I guess. Yeah, I think that was the most. Then again, they were Dumarier's, which
when I smoked drum, which is a roll your own. It's a lot cheaper. It was then. I don't know what it is now. And it was kind of under that. I mean, it still got taxed, but it was under the radar.
Yeah.
But I smoked it because it was less expensive, but also because I was just so damn proud of myself because I'm really good at rolling.
Yeah. You're a roller.
But that's what all my friends did in the UK. They all rolled their own. They had the little papers, and they would sit down, and I'm like, why do you have like a tiny piece of sponge hanging out of your mouth? And I didn't realize that those were the filters. That they put in the. I was like, you all are nuts, man. Y'all.
Yeah, I tried rolling my own cigarettes, and people would come up to me. People I didn't know, like, dude, let me hit that. I'm like, what? Like little thin toothpick joint looking thing.
But it's smoking itself is a ritual, and that's part of the addiction. And the rolling of a roll your own is also a ritual.
Yeah.
It's soothing. I imagine it might have been
very satisfying.
Yeah, you felt like the Marlboro man out in the country there on your horseback, just rolling your cigarette while you're riding your horse,
Yeah, I'm a cowboy.
I don't know. I was in Vegas at conventions having to run around and meet with all these different developers and thinking to myself, I don't have time to roll a fucking cigarette. I have got to get, so I just bought something absurd. But yes, I really wanted to be good at that, and I never was. And well, I've made peace with my shortcomings.
Don't need it.
We are going to jump into Allie's segment real quick here, people. So hold on. Let me find it right there. Here we go, Allie.
Tell me that you love me, yeah. Tell me something good.
That song's so addicting, man.
It really is stuck in my head for the rest of the week now. So I would just like to say that it is not hard to find Tell Me Something Good stories, which I love. There's a lot of good stuff, and it's kind of hard to pick sometimes, but this one kind of stuck out to me. Kansas children noticed a homelessness problem in their city, and they're designing homes to help. A group of problem-solving first and second graders in Kansas are designing homes, and they're not talking Legos. The students at Limestone Community School, a small elementary school in Lawrence, are working with architectural experts to combat their city's homeless problem. A point in time count of unsheltered people living in Lawrence one night last year showed 232 without a permanent home, according to the City of Lawrence's Housing Initiatives Division. Limestone's students plan to have 4 homes built with the help of local partners. According to the teacher, Madeline Herrera, They're aiming to raise $120,000 for building materials. We could potentially start building as late as April, should everything fall into place. This article is from April. The project-based Learning Food Micro School, which opened last fall and plans to add 3rd and 4th grade next year, teaches kids to solve tangible community issues. That could be at the school level within the city, nationwide or global, but it should be something they're concerned about, said Herrera, an educator of 11 years, who teaches a combined 1st and 2nd grade class at Limestone. They addressed plastic pollution in a previous project, and now they're turning their attention to homelessness after their winter break. The simple question of what if, posed by LeVar Burton book, Herrera read to her students, sparked the idea. One of the students said, what if everyone had parents and a home? And the other kids started really getting interested in that idea and wanted to explore it, which I think is great. She said her kids want to be part of the solution. So I think that's really great, encouraging kids to do something like that at such a young age. It's definitely going to, I think, stick with them.
I love that.
The only problem, I don't see a bathroom. Look at Phil. You don't need a bathroom.
It's optional.
They're doing great work here, Johnny.
Wait, what's that B right there? Is that the B?
Yeah, that might be.
Yeah, the porch. Look at that right there. That looks distinctly okay. I see a. Okay, that's a cistern filled with Chanel No. 5 right there.
Living room, kitchen.
A bunch of future architects right there.
Let's just say they've roughed out for the plumbing. Whatever.
Yeah, maybe the B is bathroom. They just didn't want to spell. They didn't want to spell it all out. Yeah.
At least it has a door.
Good.
Yeah.
My God, that's fantastic.
I just thought it was a really great idea.
I love the porch is essential. I will forego a restroom so I can have a porch.
Yeah.
Wow, that brings back architecture. Brings back architecture class in high school. I wasn't very good at it because I didn't know how to draw the doors right.
You had architecture class in high school?
Home ec.
Yeah,
like what?
We had architecture class in high school. Yeah.
Good man, I feel robbed.
I think in junior high school, which was 7 through 9 for us, there was home ec and there was wood shop.
Wood shop.
Yeah. Holy cow. I do believe I made something along the lines of, I don't know. I think I tried to make a bong actually.
I can't tell you how many cookie sheets and ashtrays I made for extra credit.
Yeah.
The good news is by the time I hit college, I was exhausted and I just said, no, thank you. I'm I'm trying to quit. But we all started smoking pot at a very young age where I live. It was always done in a way that was extremely discreet, with the exception of my wood shop bong. I think it might have been a bong holder, pipe holder. Anyway, Coach Wood, who taught the class, gave me this look like, you better get that out, boy.
Yeah, we used to smoke in the spray booth in wood shop. That's where we went to go. You turn the fans on and just go in there and it just suck all the smoke right out.
I swear, if I hadn't been in AP classes and played baseball, I would have been in jail at that point, man.
Well, do they still offer those? I mean, I haven't been in a high school in a long time, but they still do have wood shop and I don't know about home ec, but wood shop, metal shop, welding.
But architecture, I've never heard of. Oh, are you taking architecture this semester? No, I've opted for.
No, it was a great class. It was a great class, and you actually at the end of the year, you had built your floor plans, and you would have it was these little foam things, and you would build your doors and your walls and your roof, and it was a great class. I loved it. It was a fun class.
We had that. It was called geometry. I think.
Geometry.
I don't know. My son takes all band electives. He didn't even have to take gym. He took some art, but that was it. Like band.
He didn't have to take gym.
He got out of gym because of marching band. Yeah. But to be fair, they're like out there like killing themselves all day long in the hot sun. So
yeah, we had a leather class. I made belt. I made wallets. Yeah, I made all kinds of shit.
What type of poor ass shit high school did I go to?
I can't believe I just completely. I just had a complete epiphany. I made an ashtray, of course.
Yeah, everybody.
Everyone.
My parents didn't smoke. They didn't smoke, but they had a lot of ashtrays I made in that job.
I think my mother said thank you very much and used it.
Yeah, my
And
dad
then-
smoked a pipe. He loved that thing.
Yeah,
There was a
we'd
point in my
always-
youth when I was like 17 where my parents just stopped trying to
And
stop
it-
me from smoking. Yeah.
in the ashtray in the middle, it said, "I love mom." Remember, you put your mom's name.
I just
Oh,
made it
great.
very deep so it could be, you could go.
Well, that's because we didn't
I'll be right
expect
back.
we didn't expect our parents to actually use the ashtray, so you had to adorn it in such a way that she would be proud to actually be in ownership of an ashtray that she was never going to use. We had it all though. We had like auto shop, we had metal shop, we had wood shop, we had Deca was a name of one of the other ones. It was like design engineering, so it was everything from like clothes to all kinds of stuff. We also had the home ec was one that John mentioned. There were several, but what they did with ours is they started transferring a lot of those classes out to like a
BOCES.
it was like one of those schools that you could go to that was specifically aimed at trade
Yeah.
training. So like bricklaying and roofing and decking
Vocational,
and
yeah.
just to get
Yeah.
people into the workspace because not every kid is going to go on to college or wants to go to college, but they need something to do that makes them gainfully employed. But that was a different time and day too. I mean, I used to work for the grocery stores when if you were a meat cutter, you used to make bank, but now not so much anymore. They don't.
Do you know what they taught at my junior high school and elementary school that no one of the current generation has a clue about is typing and touch typing. And I am no longer, let's just say I'm not very good, but there was a time when I could actually, type and do so without having to look at the keyboard or, hunt and peck. And it's just amazing. Let's just say that I'm very grateful for that experience because I've met a lot of younger people that unless you do it with your two thumbs, they can't pull it off.
I was going to say exactly the same thing, that I've always been thankful that I took the typing class. And I was one of the few guys in that class, and I got really good. And it's helped me so much. And I watch my sons typing on their keyboards, and they've just cobbled it together, and it's really random and weird the way they do it. They can type really fast, but it's not the most efficient.
Yeah.
We had shop, and I took a hell of a lot of art classes because art class was cool.
Yeah,
they actually made us use an Underwood typewriter, so you got to give it some support.
I
love a good typewriter.
We got it all.
That and the piano lessons; those are the two things I couldn't stand, but have served me so well. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, every time I type something in front of my son, he says, "How do you not look at the keys?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you stare at the keys when you type?" And he's like, "Well, how else would you know where they are?" And I'm like, "What?"
Just that
ask him the relevant question.
Actually, but
ask him the relevant.
There's an app for that, right? There are software tools that can teach you to type without looking at the keyboard within like a couple hours or less than an hour even.
Yeah. Then you'd have to take a break from video games though to do that. So,
God, not since the original Zelda have I been playing video. I just don't do video games.
I was going to say, Allison, you should ask him the relevant question. Ask him, do you look at the little buttons when you play your trumpet?
That is true.
Maybe it would kind of be like, oh no, I've been doing it for so long, I don't have to look at him anymore.
Timothy has a valid point.
There you go. Yeah, but he doesn't even know how to read cursive now, so it's like it is.
Does he sight read music?
Yes.
Okay, so he can look at a piece of music. You got your treble and bass clef, and he can go ahead and just open it and play.
Yeah, all the auditions for like All County and stuff like that, like is all sight reading.
Is his pitch particularly fine, or is it just relative? I'm curious because one of the things I was blessed with was very close to perfect pitch, which is a real detriment if you want to learn how to sight read, because you're going to always just hear it. And of course, the easiest way to play a piece of music is listen and then just play it. And that sort of gets you out of having to learn how to read the music properly, which
I mean,
anyway.
honestly, from being horrible, like me, like I mean, when he first brought that trumpet home, I was like, dear Lord, like he couldn't hit the flute, like it's so loud. And now like he's phenomenal, but he wasn't like musically inclined from the start. It's definitely something that he learned. And he like now he amazes me like that he's just like as good as he is.
See, to have natural ability is one thing. To have ability and
he had to work for it. Yeah,
the determination to hone it. That's something really admirable.
And he loves jazz music. That's his favorite. Like he's in like he's got a speaker in the shower, and all he does is listen to jazz music all the time. I'm like,
really? We're going to jump to news and advocacy with Mr. Timmy up there. And where is your bumper at, Tim? It's somewhere over here. It is not somewhere. Needed. There it is. I think that's Tim right there.
That's right. Making Skid Row rich one episode at a time.
5 cents.
Exactly. Well, I go back to my original statement. We pay him more than Spotify does. So.
Yeah.
Line up, Skid Row. Yeah. Maybe we'll do this show every night, and then you'll go from rags to riches. Trust me, those guys are not suffering for money. Their average asking price, in case anyone wants to know, Skid Row will not play any venue for any less than $20,000 per show. Yeah. I know that doesn't quite meet the GNR standards of like $3 million a show. Yeah. Who God knows how much Kiss makes when they play a show, but yeah, when you're looking at bands in general and you're like $20,000 just to play a show, that's pretty impressive. All right, let's tap some papers.
Tap them.
Activity, tap the pad. Tap the ex-wife pad. Tap the ex-wife pad. I scratch her name off of every time.
Rephrase that.
I've never heard you mention the ex-wife before tonight, so later on we'll talk, Bubala. We'll talk.
That's because I don't like. There, you can see I have officially scratched her name. Every time I have to flip to a new sheet, we get her name scratched out. Because you know what? They're convenient little pads of paper, and so why discard good paper when you can just scratch out your ex-wife's name? Seems like.
So you're telling me I should not get married? Okay, I'm writing this down.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying if you get. I'm
49. I've been doing pretty well. It's just I don't want to screw this up.
All I'm saying is if you get stuck with some stenograph notepads that have your names on them, just scratch it out, and the paper's just as good. So
yeah, still good.
You can get married. There's always contingencies afterwards. All right, so let's talk about some news here. I pulled up. Of course, I completely harvest Allie's page, the 18 plus nicotine. So I have a complete resource for all the articles I could ever want. But I found this one. Hold on, let me present. Let me present. All right. I thought this one was a good one because it's something it's a question that's asked. Where is it? Hello.
As they say in Italy, boh.
I think this is it right here. Sorry, it's just sometimes it's hard to find the actual article when I'm having to go from screen to screen.
Right.
I thought this one was relevant because we asked this question on the show from time to time. We ask ourselves this, and then we ask the guests, why is it that consumers, specifically like myself and John, specifically Philip, why aren't we ever included in the conversation when it comes to tobacco harm reduction and advocacy? Why are we always have to be the silent majority, even though we want our voices to be the loudest? But I thought that this was relevant because I think that it does play a relevant part in the pursuit of tobacco harm reduction. So it just says, so little is published about the grassroots groups which advocate for tobacco harm reduction. But as our briefing paper shows, there is much to be said. Jessica Harding, Director of External Engagement at the public health group Knowledge Action Change, told Filter, KAC, based in the United Kingdom, has just released the latest report under its Global State of Tobacco Harm Reduction, GSTHR, project. It explores both the critical importance of international consumer advocacy groups in this space and their exclusion from policy discussions to determine the future of tobacco harm reduction, THR. If I had to put my guess into the hat, I would say that legislators, policymakers, people who fall on the side of the line of the argument that we must eradicate it, ban it, reduce it, limit it, get it out of as much space as possible to where it becomes almost cumbersome to acquire. I would say they don't want to hear what we have to say. It's not that they might be interested in what we have to say. I just think they specifically don't want to hear what we have to say, because I believe that would blow a lot of their theories and garble completely out of the water, because they're going to be faced with a bunch of people who have stories to share, right? Especially from the consumer grassroots space. We don't have funding behind us. We don't have organizations that specifically drive us to help drive policy. But I would feel like they just don't want to hear what we have to say, because I think that it would completely skew or at least offer a lot more truth to their pursuit, in the sense that, we can show that it actually has benefits. We can show that, overall health dispositions are greatly improved. Frankly, we walked away from cigarettes. If we want to use the argument in conversation that, they want vaping gone because they want cigarettes to still be around because it keeps everybody gainfully employed. The pharmaceutical companies, the medical, the big tobacco, so on and so forth. It says relatively little is known about the true extent of THR consumer advocacy when many groups are loosely organized, which is true, and informal, acknowledges the report. Many have only emerged recently, given the relative youth of THR options like vapes and heated tobacco products. Yet past research has identified 54 such groups present in Western Europe, Latin America, Africa, North America, Asia Pacific region, and the Asia Pacific region, but with none identified in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, or the Middle East. They pretty much got rid of vaping in the Middle East, didn't they? That pretty much is irrelevant at this point. Many of these groups are affiliated with 4 regional umbrella organizations covering Latin America, ARDT, Iberoamerica, Africa, which they have an organization, CASA. I don't know if that's a similar organization to
Yeah.
Okay. Europe, ETHRA or ETHRA, and Asia Pacific, CAPRA. Well, CAFRA, we've heard quite a bit about CAFRA. The report notes. Jump in anytime if you guys have a comment to make. Basically, it just goes on to detail basically how these groups got started, how they were formed, basically the driving force behind them. But ultimately, in a large majority of these cases, they're excluded from the conversation, maybe because people don't feel like there's much value in what they have to say. But again, I just feel like they implicitly get just sort of discarded because they don't want to hear what they have to say.
There have been a lot of papers written. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, I was just wondering, do you think it has a lot more to do with the media, whoever's running the media, not wanting us to share our message?
Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I my personal opinion on that, my op-ed on that is that I think it kind of tethers to what I said earlier, is that, whether it's in front of policymakers or whether it's in front of the media, I think we can all collectively agree that the media is driven by sensationalism, tragedy, things that are certainly going to capture people's attention. And I think that it would inherently throw a huge monkey wrench into their messaging, which they're being probably more than likely paid to sort of push these narratives to keep people in a perpetual state of epidemic or worry, or something bad is about to happen, and let's put a big bullseye on it. And so if they allowed tobacco harm, grassroots tobacco harm reduction, consumer driven voices to get, into that space, that it kind of takes away from what the narrative that they're trying to push, because it counters it way too much. So if you notice, a lot of times when they have those dissenter opinions that come on, so Greg Connolly, when he gets on the news, he's been, on the news several times, and he's there for that voice of reason and balance, and to offer a different perspective on that. And he's kind of bullied in every one of those encounters that he has. The media has to take the upper hand to kind of discredit him, or make him look like he's full of shit, or what he's saying is completely outlandish or unreasonable. So I think they ignore us too, because it only backs up Greg and his mission of trying to spread the truth within the media. So they immediately discard us.
What were you going to say, Philip?
I was just going to say, I don't necessarily disagree with anything that Tim has just said, but I think that there's something fundamentally, disgusting about one of the reasons I believe that advocates for tobacco products or people who smoke are not included, or are basically not thought of or allowed to speak in these situations or these conferences, is because a long time ago I read an article in the Journal of Tobacco Control by Ruth Malone, and it was about how we should advocate for getting rid of prohibition and using the word abolition instead, and she likened cigarette smokers to slaves, that we are without autonomy. We don't have any choice. And I want to say that I believe that a lot of why we're not, our voices are not being considered, is because a lot of old school tobacco control extremists believe that our voices are indeed biased, and we don't really have the ability to speak capably on these topics, because we are all indeed addicts, and that's taints our opinion. And that's in so many, that you should all I'll be happy to dig up that article from the journals, because it's one of the most disgusting things I've ever read. I mean, it is that bad. But there's a lot like I always say, there's a lot more ideological just depravity to this, in terms of how we are viewed as being without autonomy and without a voice, because we are nicotine addicts, and that is, I think, something that factors into it.
What I find funny is anytime I see a clip on the news about vaping, and they want to do a story, there are people that are out there that are going to be able to share that knowledge a lot better than other individuals, but they always seem to go find that one guy out in the street, instead of saying, like, if they were doing an article on vaping in North Carolina or Carolina, where Allie is, why not go get Allie? Why go get some nobody out in the middle of the street that may kind of know a little bit about a little bit, and is going to come off looking very stupid and not be able to counter on some of the questions being asked, and go and get Allie? And it just seems like there's fuck it, we'll just get somebody off the street.
I think the media will start to wake up, and I think it's already sort of starting to wake up. Have you guys seen Jacob Greer's article? It's getting huge media airtime. It's kind of the first time I've ever seen that happen. It's going out on online news sites all over the United States that have 200,000 followers. Yeah. I've never seen that happen before. At the same time, what's happened over the past 5-6 years is while there is a legitimate debate in the scientific community here over harm reduction or precautionary principle, the media is only obviously sharing one side of that, as Philip says. And just the recent, they're only giving oxygen to the people like the good ladies, the good Chablis drinking ladies at Parents Against Vape. and who
Yeah,
are
please, Chablis doesn't deserve that.
very recently, they're on a news channel saying that e-cigarettes deliver more nicotine than cigarettes, and it hits the brain faster than a cigarette does. And none of that's true.
Yeah.
And they just get away with saying this kind of demonstrably false stuff.
Yeah.
And none of us good people are, well, with a few exceptions, like Greg is a great spokesperson.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And he must have had some media training because he handles himself well.
Well, yeah, Brian King always talks about blowtorch, fire, baptism by fire. Greg actually received the absolute, hey, you want to represent us on national TV, and oh, by the way, can you be on Cuomo tomorrow? Yeah, I mean, that's what I believe that happened to him during Valley, and he got very good very quickly. And yeah, you're right. But I also think that the media instinctively goes out into the world to find someone who is going to say that which is the most wrong. It's for the same reason that we love to, post and subtweet Marjorie Taylor Greene, for God's sakes. All right. Yeah. It's the same thing. But you're right. And Charles, I have to give you a great deal of I give you a great deal of credit for doing what you do every day on Twitter, despite it being it's madness to have to say the same very, very basic, correct the same basic facts to the same people over and over again. For example, when they say this pot is equivalent to 1,000 cigarettes. Oh, good God. Well, it's indeed meant to replace 100 cartons. It's just.
Do you? I'm wondering, Charles. Do you pay attention to your
minds one person at a time? There's no other way to do this.
Charles, do you pay? I know you're certified. You have the little blue thing on your thing, right?
I'm certifiable.
Yeah, we know that, but you got the little blue. Yeah, you got the little blue check. Do you pay attention to your tweets and see if you're getting a newer group of people coming in to see? Is there? I don't know how it all works that far as what you get to see on Twitter. Do you feel like your message is getting out to a different group?
I'm not sure. So my followers have increased dramatically since when I was at Inco. Then they convinced me to do that, and now I guess I'm still paying for that out of pocket. But what troubles me is, so when I do a survey, when I did a survey, let's say 3 years ago, and I had maybe 25% the number of followers I have now, sometimes I got like 1,000 votes on a survey. And today I can do a similar survey and it gets like 200 or 300. So I don't know what's going on there, other than maybe we have less advocates. That's one.
I think we have less advocates. That perhaps the way that Twitter has changed. One of the things that have changed is the. I have to go ahead and log in and log out periodically, just so I get notifications for certain people, but only a couple that rarely tweet. But I see tweets from the same people constantly, and when I want to see the range of people, I actually never thought I would have any followers on Twitter, and I don't have that many, but I also feel a certain responsibility to not tweet like an idiot. So that said, I try my best to widen my reach and incorporate other people who may not be part of quote the tobacco harm reduction, but the greater harm reduction, like people like Claire Zagorski or Ryan Moreno. We talked about that, and I think we're doing we're giving it the old college try, and I think we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you guys had that capability, having the blue check mark, being able to see if you're bringing in new viewership.
I have no idea.
No, I mean, you can't really see like who's following you and who isn't. But I will say that yesterday, Gabriel Iglesias, aka Fluffy, started following me. So I immediately started Googling, does Gabriel Iglesias vape? Because I can only assume
Right.
Well,
if
yeah,
he's
for
actually
example,
looked at my content.
so I guess so John, your question is, can we discern what kind of unique follows or views we get? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
asking?
Is it any way to show that you're getting someone outside of our circle in to come actually read your stuff? That's what I was wondering.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, that's
Let's
too
just
bad.
say anytime I quote tweet you and mention Clovis, it somehow gets a hell of a lot of views. So we need to like get that guy on
That
here.
bastard.
That guy.
Yeah,
The
Still-
nerve, $2.50 an hour.
yeah. That's too bad if they don't
CPI.
let you see that, because I think that's kind of an important thing to be able to see if you're trying to build your Twitter account up, is to see whether or not you're bringing in that new viewership to your page.
A long time.
Yeah,
I don't know. And I do suspect that whatever Twitter's algorithms may be kind of
right.
suppressing me. And if they're,
I think they might be. I'm also seeing that because at least 3 days out of every 7, for example, Phil, our mega thread genius, he will either like or retweet something that I tweeted, and then when I look at the people who either liked or retweeted it, he doesn't actually show up, even though it'll say he's one of the 7.
Right.
He won't show up, and the same is true for a couple people every so often. And I don't know, but if you ever feel like you are quote shadow banned or being suppressed, ask Phil, because he has probably a half dozen different programs that can help you fix that problem.
Yeah, there are, like, Instagram does have some apps that you can actually use, and I used them before just to see if my photos were actually getting out there outside of our, the hashtag vaping or the hashtag vape community. And I was able to see those statistics and see, okay, this picture actually did 1,600 views. And then it would show me that these views came from outside of vaping, and these views came from this hashtag. This one came from this specific hashtag. So they don't do that with Twitter.
You can see analytics.
You can see
that,
right?
Yeah, you can see like how many impressions, your top tweets. But you can't see like if they're outside of your circle or
You're
anything.
supposed to be able to see how many new followers you might get from a specific tweet, but that's only worked for me twice. My advice to everyone is, please stay on Twitter. I will never call it that. And please try to interact with people who you don't normally interact with, but who might be I guess capable of understanding what it is that we're doing on this platform. Because I've never in my entire life thought long and hard about how many different ways can I not make a dime being called industry like shill. What I'm doing is trying to just broaden our reach, and speaking to people who have an interest in opioid harm reduction or cannabis legalization, things of that nature. We're all part of the same effort, just some of us don't quite know it yet.
Greg Conley and I had a back and forth today, and he's absolutely, no, it wasn't Greg, it was Stefan Didak. And he's absolutely right. We actually, our advocates, our community dominates Twitter. It just does. And in fact, I think I've seen a dramatic fall in the number of anti-vaping tweets on Twitter over the past year or two. And so I've started to move into Facebook, and am kind of like before this, that Facebook was just for my friends and family. Now I'm like a crazy person on Facebook. And then I post much more staid, evidence-based posts on LinkedIn, where I have a professional following, pretty big network. And I know that gets to a lot of people outside of our community, including just a shitload of people in the global health community. and some interesting responses there. But every time I look at the like who's had eyes on a post I put on LinkedIn, guess who it is? If you can get some limited analytics on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know, Dr. Kelly Henning.
If you do it by organization, it's BAT, PMI,
Yep.
Jewel.
Yep. All of my LinkedIn views are that. And I even had somebody that was like a software writer for the FDA the other day that popped up.
I need an honorary title with some harm reduction group so I can actually go on LinkedIn, with that profile, because let's just say that my current business does not allow for that. I'm not even on LinkedIn. It became a bit of a hassle, but gosh, I would really like to be able to do that. Facebook, I cannot listen to my parents and my parents' friends, bitch about, I don't know, I don't know their political grievances.
Does anyone use Reddit? Right. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of Reddit threads that are. Yeah. So Allie, so how does that? I mean, I have edited dozens of Reddit pages that had nothing to do with vaping because they were wrong.
Well, you can set alerts too. So like if somebody's asking about questions about vaping, you can get an alert from Reddit. So then you can click on the alert and you can respond to the question, which I do a lot.
Is it usually set as like sensitive? So it has to get through the editors because it's
No, they had like R vaping. There's a couple of different subreddits for pictures and other one for questions. And when Anthony Victor, who's with Vaping 360 now, was on there, I used to be part of that, but I haven't done it in a while. But yes, you can get notifications, and yes, it can be a place where you can help.
That is where a lot of people get their information. So
yeah, I've helped a lot of people. I've had people say like, "Oh, I caught my son with a vape. Like, should I take him to the hospital? Should I be concerned, or whatever the case is?" And I'm like,
that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about Reddit in a while.
Cut off the offending hand. It's very simple.
Yes, we shouldn't tolerate the left-handed.
Allie, I have those, but they won't let me play them.
It won't?
No. I don't know why. We had some clips and I downloaded them for I don't know, maybe they're corrupt. I don't know. I'm not sure. Hold on. Let me try one more time. Select an app to open this WAV file. Media player.
Something from you is corrupt, John.
These are the clips that Bill sent me to play after the interview.
Yeah. Hold on. I think it might work here. We'll just do these real quick because we got two. Let me make sure I can get this to work. Yeah, see, it's not showing up. Oh, wait. Windows. Okay, media player. Tell me if you guys can hear them. I hope.
Mm-mm.
No? You guys can't hear those?
No.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. Share screen. Windows. Media player. It should be playing. It should entire screen. Yeah, it says it should be to share audio tab on or screen instead. Okay. All right. I see what they want me to do. That's ridiculous. Hold on.
Did you plug it in?
No, what it wants me to do is drag the actual file into Chrome to so you guys can hear it, which is very, very strange. Okay. I think I got it. Hold on, guys. That makes absolutely no damn sense at all. So, yeah, see, what they want me to do is take the clip, slide it into a tab on a browser to play it so you can hear it. All right. So, I think the first clip, yeah, here we go. All right. Now it should play. All right. One more try. No, John, don't do that. All right. Present, share screen, tab. There you go. Share audio is on.
that where you say it's an organization that is has been established a long time ago, they weren't always called Movendi.
They weren't. No, they weren't. They used to be the International Order of Good Templars, and they rebranded themselves in 2020. I think because that name sounds like it's pulled directly out of a Dan Brown novel.
a big donor, a foundation that says, like, well, we really despise the nefarious effects of alcohol, and we will donate. We will get charitable donations from all people all around the world to fund that operation. Is that how it works?
No, it's funny. It's a little different and a lot more hypocritical. So Movendi, the group that is waging war on the sin of alcohol, it funds its neo-temperance lobby by running a lottery in Sweden.
I'm sorry. There's they run a lottery.
Yes.
There's a gambling operation. They're funded through a gambling operation in Sweden.
Yes. The Puritans are not pure.
And let me slide this.
That was a clip from the first episode that came out today.
Yeah. Can you hear the second one? Can you hear that, guys?
No.
No.
Okay. I got to reshare it. That is StreamYard. No. All right.
Damn
okay.
StreamYard's great.
State-level bans were passed piece by piece until prohibition became federally enforced with the 18th Amendment in 1919. As we came to learn, the consequences unraveled almost immediately. The crime, the violence, the waste of hundreds of millions of dollars, and a weaponization of government into private lives that we had never before witnessed. The fruits of capitalism bore poisonous fruit. That, however, was yesterday's prohibitionism and yesterday's class of billionaires. The gospel of wealth in modern times is no longer the fashionable cause it once was. Instead, it has a new name and a new face: public health.
If government's purpose isn't to improve the health and longevity of its citizens, I don't know what its purpose is.
Perpetuated by a New York City billionaire with a name as iconic as his wealth.
Single biggest health problem in America, and will kill more people than smoking in a few years.
Act 2, the Bloomberg terminal cause.
Okay, and the last clip, I got to... All right, and then I got to reshare it.
You guys will like this one. It's Ethan Nadelman. So,
Was that last one Yale?
yeah.
Yeah, I knew it.
Part of that, the combustible stuff. That's why the Public Health Service in Britain and the Royal College of Physicians has estimated that e-cigarettes are 90 to 95% less dangerous to human health than are cigarettes, right? But you still get that sort of stupid, uneducated, you're just substituting one addiction for another. Right now, and then you also, of course, go the kids. Why couldn't we legalize medical marijuana? I got to protect the kids. Why can't we have needle exchange programs? Got to protect the kids. Why can't we reduce these harsh mandatory sentences? Got to protect the kids. I mean, there's always holding up, as if the whole drug war being justified as one great big Child Protection Act, and that's exactly what's happening with the tobacco issue now. Why can't we do everything possible to get out there alternative forms of nicotine and tobacco, including flavored products? Got to protect the kids. Remember,
those damn kids. No, I'm kidding.
God, Ethan is such a force of nature. That I cannot say.
Yeah, so definitely check the podcast out. Subscribe to it so you get notifications when the weekly, episode comes out. And episode 3 is all about vaping, but definitely worth listening to all of it because it's really relevant and it's really good.
I mean, you have to listen critically, but I don't ever, find myself in a place where I'm listening to something and I stop whatever else I'm doing so I can listen more intently.
Yeah.
This is really good stuff.
I'm a Spotify car user. I'm in the car. My screen goes right to Spotify and it starts playing this show. But
Yeah, I use Spotify all the time, and
Yeah.
increasingly for
All the time.
podcasts.
yeah, so the show is on Spotify, guys. The link's in the header and it's also in the chat. And I'll put it in there again one more time before we log off. Go and check that out. Their first episode is up and running, so go over there and check that out. It's an hour. I think an hour and a couple minutes. Yeah, so it's perfect. It's perfect commuter listening. So,
It's essential listening.
yeah, and Allie brought something up earlier in the show where she talked about how Bill had the perfect podcast voice. And that was like my down. I always wanted to sound like, and we're an older group here, Wolfman Jack. I always wanted to sound like Wolfman Jack on the radio. It's not going to happen, John. Just give it up.
Well, I can
Thing
sound like
is,
anyone you want.
if you have a British accent, everyone thinks your IQ is about 10 points higher than it actually is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Allie, but if you have a Southern accent, everyone thinks your IQ is about 10 points lower.
I don't have a Southern accent.
Yeah,
I'm from
she
New York.
doesn't. Yeah, she's from New York.
So by being on this show, I am literally just my stock is plummeting every time I open my mouth. Wow.
Listen, I don't have no one else in Charleston for that matter. I've not met anyone with a Southern drawl in Charleston.
Yeah, I had the guy at the other
Al,
day
you'll
at
make
the
it down
store.
here one day. I'll show
Yeah.
you some things.
Going away.
I had the guy at the store the other day look at me like I was crazy because I don't know what it was. I went back to my South Philly days and he's like, did you say dollar? I said, yeah, dollar. Give me a dollar. I got a dollar. And he's like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. A dollar. All right, guys. Hey, Charles, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure
Charles.
having you on the show. And you're not a parasite. And you're not, what was the other definition of host? A warrior, some sort of warrior or king?
Host is a weird name or a weird word. It has a surprising number of different meanings.
Yeah.
And one is like a vast army, like the
vast.
Mongol horde. And one is somebody who gets parasitized. So yeah.
I think it's lampreys, but then again, go ahead.
We are the vast harm reduction army, if you think about it.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, we are the barbarian horde.
Parasitizing me.
Well, thank you, Charles. Thank you for being here and enlightening us. It's always a pleasure. Truly.
Happy
All
you're
right, guys. Allie, you want to share who our guest is next week? Should be great.
Yes. Our guest next week is Drew. And now I'm forgetting his last name because I'm having a brain fart. I'm too tired. Yes. Okay. So he is running for Congress in Nevada. He is very pro vape. He's written some amazing articles about vaping, and he's going to come on and speak with us next week.
Oh, so what do you know about him, Allie? Because he's been in touch with me.
Oh, I mean, he's great. I've been working with him and putting him in touch with advocacy groups out in Nevada and kind of like getting him set up. I think he even did like the Taco Tuesday call. He's a great guy. He is very passionate about harm reduction. I don't know if you read the last article that he wrote. But, I mean,
I have.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And is he libertarian, conservative?
He's a Republican.
Yeah, he's a Republican. Yeah.
So does his harm reduction affinity extend to things like safe supply, legalization, decriminalization?
Well, you can ask him next week.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that's okay. If I ask a few, tough questions, that would be.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, why
like
not?
all you guys should know, I'm a bleeding heart liberal myself, but I have friends on all sides, and
we bleeding heart liberals, we're important because guess what? It's just you and me, buddy. No, I would consider myself a man without a party for sure.
On that note, we will see everybody next week. Thank you, Tim, Allie, Charles, for joining us, Philip as well, and we will see everybody next Wednesday at what time, Tim? I want Tim
Thanks
to
for
do
watching.
the old way we did it, Tim. The old way. What?
Seven. Well, no, it's 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then I forget after that. So.
Forget after that. That's all. All right, guys, we're out of here. Peace
Bye.
out.